Hello, it's February 7th. This is Evan Rose on board Ripple, my 30-foot Hunter sailboat at the DeMillo's Marina in Portland, Maine. Winter out here on the docks can be very beautiful. Nights are black as ink. Daytime pastels change every day from pinks and lavenders to blues and purples and grays. Birds, seagulls always give a sound of life. Waves always give a sound of peace, sometimes wildness. And it can also get cold. I'm inside. It's raining outside, a little bit of a mix, rain and snow. We've had quite a lot of snow in the past couple of weeks, and in this episode I'm going to walk you through some of the storms we've had this winter so far. So living on board a sailboat is not for everyone. Those who are not shrink wrapped especially have no advantage of having an extra sort of greenhouse space above their boat. But I'm nice and cozy inside. I've got my wood stove, gives me ambiance and heat, and it dries out the boat. I have to restoke it about every hour or 3 hours, depending on how cold it is and the nature of the wood and how hot the wood is. Mostly I burn flooring scraps from a local hardwood supply place. It's nice having a little bit of a sort of a tiny home to live in, very cozy, very efficient, but at times the weather and nature take charge, and you pretty much have to drop everything that you planned and everything that you're doing and watch out for your house, which is your boat. A couple of times things got a little bit sketchy this winter so far. My name is Evan. I live on a sailboat in the Gulf of Maine, even in winter. I'm an earth scientist, a policymaker, and planner for a turbulent future. I live efficiently, deliberately, and in beauty. There is so much that needs to change about how we live impactfully on this planet. This vlog guides us through that change, through science, story, and song. Shortly after the winter season began at the marina in mid-October, the first winter storm developed into a rapidly intensifying extratropical cyclonic low-pressure area, otherwise known as a bomb cyclone, also known as a white hurricane. This one wasn't white. The air temperature was warm enough that it was rainy. It was still chilly outside, but the highest clocked wind speeds at the marina were 63 knots. They were sustained for almost a minute, which is kind of a long time when you're rubbing against a dock and worried about rubbing against a dock. The sustained winds were upwards of 30 knots, and this lasted for over 20 hours. So the wind started picking up at about 10 p.m. on October 26th, to the point where it got to be concerning, and at midnight it was pretty much impossible to sleep. I can sleep when the boat rocks and rolls, but when it starts jerking and tugging on lines to the point where they have no more flex, then it gets to be a problem. I have a pretty standard way that I tie my boat up, and includes having spring lines, which are lines that go from cleats that are fore and aft, the length of the boat, but go more towards the midship so that the boat can pitch. The bow can go up and down, and stern can go up and down. The midship stays pretty stable with pitching, and it doesn't snap lines. Nevertheless, the wind was so unrelenting, lasting for hours and hours and hours, that I got out about every hour to check on the lines, and twice during that time my spring lines snapped. one time while I was out adjusting the fenders and adjusting the lines. It's 5/8 inch gold braid, unchafed, in good shape spring lines, and just from the tension alone it snapped twice. So so I quickly had to find some other lines to tie to the dock. The storm lasted well into the next day and gradually decreased in intensity and then disappeared. At the end of it, several docks were damaged, including the finger dock that I was on, and so I was moved to the other side of the slip. Several other boats had lines snap or lost fenders. I lost a fender when it snapped between the dock and the heaving, rolling boat. So this happens. I guess you have to anticipate such an expense and make sure that you have extra fenders and extra lines at the time when you need them in the peak of these storms. So a little bit of advice for sailors living on board in stormy areas. Strangely, as intense as the storm was, it didn't have a lot of precipitation. There wasn't a lot of rain that was associated with it. However, later that week, we did have a storm that didn't have much in terms of wind, but a lot of rain. Well, my wood stove arrived. I've been waiting for this for a long time. It's late October. It's October 30th right now. The noise in the background is a rainstorm. It's not as bad as the storm we had earlier this week, which was the first bomb cyclone of the season. And it caused a fair amount of damage. A couple of docks were broken loose from their pilings, including the one just a couple of slips away from mine. I lost a fender, snapped right off. I got out, tightened the lines. I was up all night. 60 knot gusts and sustained 35 knot winds. That was that storm. And as I was outside, I was checking the lines about every hour. I was up all night, but checking lines about every hour. And when I heard that snap, I went out onto the dock. And as I was tightening the lines, one of my stern spring lines snapped before my very eyes. So I got some bigger, I got some additional lines, some replacements, and some big fat snubbers. So it's reducing much of the shock. But you can see from the rocking in here that it's you know, a steady 30 knot wind with some gusts and yeah, rain, pelts of rain. The months of November and especially December were seasonally lovely. We had some snow before Christmas, and I had some time and inspiration to do some songwriting. One of the songs I just posted at the end of January is called Rolly World. And it's kind of where I was at, where my mind was at in November. And in December, I posted a Christmas song, an actual Christmas song. So that's on my YouTube channel. Look for Rolly World. That was just released at the end of January, just a couple of weeks ago. That's kind of where my mind was at in November. And then in December, this Christmas song is called Wishing Tree. Some of you may recognize some of the inspiration from J.S. Bach's orchestral suite, the Badinnerie, but if you don't recognize that, then it's original. Anyway, I hope you enjoy those videos. There's an additional video called White Christmas, which is just some cinematography and scenes of street musicians and an a cappella band just before Christmas. It was sort of a blessed encounter of hearing the song White Christmas played out in the streets of Old Port Portland. Then for New Year's, I took a train across the Great Plains, across this great country, for 3 days to Flagstaff, Arizona, where I lived for 15 years. And then beyond this, to do geologic work at Frenchman Mountain near Las Vegas and in the western Grand Canyon. This geologic work is kind of cool gee whiz stuff in some of the most scenic landscapes in the world, and will be the subject of future episodes. It was good to get out in the sun in midwinter, get some vitamin D, and to thaw out a bit. But I returned to Maine's mid-January biting cold. It's 1 degree outside with 25 knot winds. There's a frost on the inside of the windows, and 40 degrees inside, even though the wood stove is cranking. Maybe if I had hotter wood. Some of this birch is not so hot, but doing what I can to stay warm. Ice and frost is manageable, but then came the Martin Luther King Day storm. It's 7:30 on Martin Luther King Day, the holiday. I've been up since 4:30 because last night this windstorm came up, and it's a pretty howling wind. It's coming from the east, so it's hitting obliquely and pushing me up against the docks. I have to go check the lines. I think one of my fenders might have snapped off or something needs to be adjusted, but this is comparable in strength to the bomb cyclone we had earlier this year in October. 60 mile an hour winds out here, so it's already high and rocking the boat and pushing up against the dock. But it's pretty violent, sustained gale force winds. All right, so I got to go out and check the docks, or check the dock lines and fenders. All right, here it goes. A little bit of a lull in the winds. Holy moly, it's cold, icy on these docks. I'm having to steady myself, keep a very wide stance. This is pretty dangerous. Yeah, it's the boat is permanently listing because the wind is so high. That's sounds of the boat rubbing against the rub rails on the dock. There's how it looks up there. Pretty violent. I had a 1-inch thick hawser line, or thick rope, tying my chain plate in midship to the windward dock, which was damaged in the October bomb cyclone. The weight of my boat and the larger sailboat on the lee side of the finger dock put a lot of strain on that dock. Rolling and pinching and bumping into that dock finally broke the bracket connecting the finger dock to the main dock. I had to rely even more upon my hawser tied to the windward dock to keep from taking out my boat, the dock, and the neighbor's boat. icy out here too. Fun. At 8:45 a.m., the astronomical high tide saw 3-foot waves overtop the 11-foot seawall at the marina. Docks were not designed for this sort of wave action. My neighbor on this finger dock doesn't live on board, but was here to check his lines fairly regularly. I hope to share some of the stories of my fellow liveaboard marina mates in later episodes, because as diverse as our stories are, we share one common situation. Housing is prohibitively expensive, and this is our affordable option. Needless to say, it's not without risk and its own discomforts from time to time. One liveaboard resident is completely new to Maine and to sailing. He called me somewhat panicked early in the morning of this storm, asking about what to do if his dock gives way. I told him how to use his VHF radio to call the Coast Guard, which has a station just across the mouth of the river we're on. My 1-inch thick hawser snapped from the tension alone twice during the storm. And in order to save my boat, I ended up doing one of the scarier things I've done as an adult, is to walk out on this heaving, rolling, icy dock that was already broken off from the main dock and retie this hawser. The marina crew ended up lashing the docks together from cleat to cleat where the bracket had broken. Sudden as it came, the storm left by noon, and life at the marina returned to normal seasonal cold, calm conditions. Maine is one of the few eastern states that offer skiing, and so it's a good way to turn ice and snow in the cold of winter into something of a plaything and to get some good exercise in the process. A big blizzard swept across the eastern U.S. at the end of the month of January. Fortunately, I was moved to the more protected western part of the marina. Well, the storm's raging. I've been hearing some crunching noises. Yeah, so I need to go out and check the floats and maybe tie some extra tight lines. All right, I gotta go. Well, that solved this problem. Another bumper on. So for all of the disadvantages of winter living, there is at least one advantage that is a chore that happens in the summertime that is easier in the wintertime, and that is getting ice. There's a little sheet of ice. So I can just put that straight away in the cooler. Well, thanks for tuning in. If you like what you see, hit the subscribe button or like button, comment below, and hopefully we'll see you next time. Thanks for joining me.